Nothing Personal starts in 30 seconds. It's just business. This is Nothing Personal.
Here you go. Here you go. Yeah.
62 again. That's the Nothing Personal word of the day. It is Monday, August 26th, 2024. We're going to talk about Aaron Judge. We're going to talk about Shohei Ohtani. We're going to talk about Jordan Montgomery. But if you're watching this on Nothing Personal with David Samson on the YouTube channel, we're live. Or if you're watching on the DraftKings Network, yes, I am not in my studio. I am dropping off my youngest son to college for his senior year. The same son who is in the introductory video, if you ever watch live on YouTube, from the Panthers game, spending the day putting together furniture and making runs to Target and what was Bed Bath & Beyond. Thinking to myself that that's it. It's like a final, sort of emotional in a non-emotional way. It's thank God it's done. But moving in is always stressful because they don't want you around, but they do want you around, but they sort of only want you around to pay for stuff, to get them ready for school, but yet they're going to miss you, but then their friends are there, but then they're seniors now, so they're the kings of campus. It's a whole Megillah. Let's get into it. What a weekend. So I spend the weekend with Coca and Sarah, and we're sending texts back and forth and going over different subjects. What will be the lead, LEDE? Hard not to start with Aaron Judge. While we're here in New York, well, Connecticut actually, but for those of you in New York or those of you who hate the Yankees or love the Yankees, not much apathy toward the Yankees. Aaron Judge, it is hard to not like him. He was, over my time, remember he won the home run derby in 2017 at Marlins Park. I'm trying to think of a player who has fewer enemies. He's the anti-Jazz in terms of what other players think of him. And when you think about the actual, yeah, it's funny, Coca. The Staten Island Little League coach doesn't like Aaron Judge. There's one guy who doesn't like Aaron Judge. One angry, bitter coach. Well, go listen to the show last week. So Aaron Judge hit a bunch of home runs again this weekend. And I just want to mention a few things. After 10 days in the season, I am not a proponent of he's on schedule for blank. After 60 days of the season, I do not believe it is fair to say he is on schedule, he is on par, look out, he could have blank. But we're about to be in September. It is open season for extrapolating current pace on end of season stats. Aaron Judge has an opportunity to break his own record. It's not getting the attention it did because in 2022, when he broke Roger Maris's record, Roger Maris's family was flying around. It was a whole big deal. Most home runs in the American League, queries the most home runs in any season, non-steroid division. This year, no one's traveling around. No one's paying much attention, except for the fact that he has a chance to break the American League record that he set. That's only 2 years old. I am prepared to have a full dish of crow. When Aaron Judge signed his free agent contract to stay with the Yankees, I said to you that there is nowhere to go but down in terms of his performance. He will never be able to match his 62 home run season of 2022. Of course, I should know to never say never. Now, it doesn't mean he's going to hit 63, but it does mean he's on pace for 63. He has helped the Yankees. They couldn't even sweep the Rockies with his weekend performance. Yesterday, they had Judge, Soto, and Stanton go back to back to back. Not in that order, of course. Soto, Judge, Stanton, back to back to back. Congrats to those who had that parlay, the home run anytime parlay. But I was thinking about the Yankees situation, and I was going through the team again and thinking about the postseason matchups and the Guardians, and do the Twins have a chance? And what would the Yankees look like in the first round? Looking at their bullpen, looking at their pitching, and thinking about their hitting. And I don't want to throw cold water on Yankee fans. However, I want to remind you that hitting, when it happens, it feels like it always happens. And then when you're not hitting, it feels like that slump is forever. It's the way baseball, the mentality is, you are a prisoner of the last moment. And so now everyone wakes up today. They think about Judge since the All-Star break. They think about the fact that what is he hitting it since the All-Star break? He's hitting 413. He's got 17 home runs. His OPS is over 1,400. It's just a pace that is hard to imagine. He's got another month and change to do it. But if you go in this time period, pretty much if you go in any time period, there can be a 3-game stretch where it doesn't happen. So the cold water is this. Brian Cashman, when he's thinking about Juan Soto, side note, Coca, the whole Juan Soto interview after the game, when he was asked about an extension, and now the bleacher creatures who are fans who watch from right field or left field in the bleachers, and they yell the names, Derek Jeter, and then you get a clap. They go through the intros. Juan Soto has a thing with them, as he should, and everybody wants Juan Soto to re-sign with the Yankees. And it reminds me of last year when Juan Soto was on the Padres. He had not signed a long-term deal. There were lots of issues in the Padres clubhouse. There are many people in the game who thought Juan Soto was the issue versus Tatis. Some thought Tatis was the issue instead of Soto. Let's just say until Soto gets paid, he's not happy. So Soto, when asked about, what are you doing? What's your long term? He continues to give the line, hey, I'm going to let my agent take care of that. Who's Scott Boras? We're going to get to Scott Boras in a couple minutes. But this time he said, you're going to have to talk to Cashman. Now, the funniest part about that, and we don't have, because I didn't think to ask Coco, because I didn't even think of this during the weekend or the pre-show. It's funny that Soto thinks you have to talk to Cashman about a Soto extension. Of course, Cashman will have nothing to do with the Soto extension. It will all be Hal Steinbrenner. And Boras won't even deal with Cashman. He only would want to deal with Steinbrenner on this issue. So Boras needs to tell Soto, hey, man, when asked, say, you're going to have to talk to Steinbrenner. So that funny miscommunication made me smile. So Judge has the MVP wrapped up in the American League. I think we can all agree on that. What about the National League? Well, if you're paying attention to DraftKings, as you should be, Shohei Ohtani is the runaway favorite to win the MVP. He's a designated hitter who's going to win MVP. He is having a season, the likes of which we've seen, I don't know, 5 other times. Over the weekend, he joined the 40-40 club. He stole a base and then hit a walk-off grand slam. That means he's got over 40 home runs and over 40 or more stolen bases. What I love about the media and about fans is that the minute, and I guess I'm like this too, the minute never satisfied, total Hamilton Burr situation. Ohtani gets to 40-40, and the next second the tweet is, hey, what about 50-50? No player's ever had a 50-50 season. 6 players, and you know the list, Acuna and A-Rod and Alfonso Soriano. 40-40 is hard to come by. Canseco had one. Remember when Canseco could steal and he wasn't some internet lunatic? He was a good player. Well, he was a steroid player, but still a good player with steroids. So Ohtani is doing something that we've seen one other time. He's going to win the MVP in the National League. That means he will have won the MVP in both leagues, joining only Frank Robinson, one other player ever to be MVP in both leagues. But the contracts he signed counted on him pitching. And so there was a huge hullabaloo this weekend when Ohtani took the mound. He threw 10 pitches out of the bullpen at Dodger Stadium before a game this weekend. And it was the first time Ohtani has thrown from the mound since he had Tommy John, his second Tommy John. So I've had a lot of players recovering from Tommy John. Too many to mention. It's quite funny the way the mind works, and our mind is really, it's there to help us. It's there to help us rationalize. It's there to help us explain. It's there to help us feel better about something based on circumstance that in another circumstance would not make you feel good at all. So if you have a player you've signed to a long-term deal and that player is not pitching well, but he's not hurt, he's not performing, we would have him go to the bullpen and work on stuff in between starts. And then we'd watch him in the bullpen and say, oh, I think he figured it out. We changed the grip. We did a little leg movement. We moved his position on the rubber. We did something, and then we see the result in the bullpen and we say, wow, we nailed it. We got it. It's all going to be good. And it's such horse hockey because until you bring it to the field during the game and get results, it doesn't mean diddly. When a guy is recovering from Tommy John, it's not too dissimilar. There are different steps. So when a player is Tommy John, they come out of surgery immediately. They're in a brace where they have no range of motion in their arm, but they're doing stuff. They can do cardio. They can do stuff on the bike. And then you're doing physical therapy on the arm and the elbow. And then you work your way up to doing exercises with rubber bands. And then you work your way up to just having a ball in your hand and doing a throwing motion. And then you work your way up to having a catch. And then you finally throw on flat ground. And then you get on the bullpen. And then you don't have all your pitches, but you start with just the four seamers, two seamers, and then you work in the breaking stuff. It's a whole process. And it's tried and true. It's written, and so it is said that if you're going to recover from Tommy John, this is what you have to do. And when it's your player, when they hit these milestones, you feel super good about it. Except then you go back and you talk to the doctor, you talk to the trainer, and you speak to your GM in your office or while you're watching a game and you're going through the injured list, which we would do every game when watching a game. You have your injured list. Remember the piece of papers that I would carry around in my black bag in my briefcase that I'd have at every game? You've got the players on the list. You've got the trainer's report, only one report that the Marlins do. And you're going, if you know, you know, and you're going through each player and the progress is noted because there's a space on the injury report that is submitted every day to you that is pros. The top of the report just says the player and then the injury and then when the player was put on the injured list and then under expected return. Sometimes it says 4 to 6 weeks. Sometimes it says 2 to 3 weeks. For a Tommy John guy, it just says nothing. You don't put 8 to 9 months. You don't put 12 to 14 months. You just put undetermined. But in the pros part, it gets written and it says through bullpen, 10 pitches, reevaluate tomorrow is what it would say. And we would take that and say, yes, what a great step. Of course, it's like step 50 of 8,000 to come back and pitch. But it feels good. It feels good. Shohei Ohtani and Aaron Judge are lapping the field, folks. Make sure you watch them. They are your MVPs of the league and teams that could meet in the World Series. People have accused me of being a dream breaker. Let me explain that. A dream breaker is when you call a player into your office and you release them and you know very well that they're going to go to the minor leagues and never come back. And then you know you're going to release them from the minor leagues and they've been working their whole life. They start off in little league, they work their way up, and all they want is to be a big leaguer. Sometimes you're a dream maker when you give players a chance. You don't have a chance. You trade for a player who is in a different team's minor league system, and then you start playing him in the big leagues. You sit him down and talk to him. It's a dream maker. I spent many of my years working with Jeff Conine, whose nickname is Mr. Marlin. Traded for him in August of 2003, won a World Series with him in 2003. Became one of the 4 or 5 former players of mine who I got very close to and stayed very close to. He was a special assistant for me in Miami. Watched every game together, me, Andre Dawson, and Tony Perez. Yes, you can look at me if you want, Louis. He had a son named Griffin Conine. Griffin Conine, Coca. I got a Griffin Conine story for you. And why am I talking about Griffin Conine? Stay with me. It'll all come clear. Conine and I did a triathlon in Tampa called the St. Anthony's Triathlon. This is while Conine was training to do an Ironman after he retired, and he only did the Hawaii Ironman because I did the Hawaii Ironman, and he wanted to beat my time. That's our relationship, super competitive, but super full of love and respect. And we did the St. Anthony's Triathlon, which is an Olympic triathlon, and it was in Tampa, and he brought his kids, and one of his kids was a young teen, Griffin. And Griffin was interested in skateboarding at that time and not interested at all in baseball, at all. And Niner, as a professional baseball player, was not going to pressure his kid to love baseball. He wanted either his kid to want it or to not want it. His other son is an unbelievable young man who is also not into baseball. So guess what? A couple years later, Griffin Conine decided he wanted to play baseball. And Jeff Conine, as the father, when you think that it would be really easy for a father to become overbearing or to try to coach his son or teach his son or help his son or want his son to be better than he was, Griffin Conine, who has the skills to be better than Jeff ever was, has a gorgeous lefty power stroke, was drafted by the Toronto Blue Jays, traded to the Miami Marlins. Yesterday, Griffin Conine got called up to the big leagues. Little Griffin Conine, who's now a young man, is going to be a big leaguer. I want to tell you about a phone call I got. Spoke to Jeff Conine, Mr. Marlin, yesterday. And it was a very strange conversation to me because I have a failing. My failing is that with my kids, it is the anxiety, the angst, the roadblocks, the stumbles that I think about more than the successes. And I don't know why I'm that way. I do get help over that. And it doesn't, for whatever reason, I can't change it. Where the expression, you're only as happy as your least happy child, truly describes me. And so I'm just always worried. And when there are amazing things that my kids do, I view it almost sadly as, all right, that's great. And what's next? Jed Bartlett style. Jeff Conine got the call that his son was being called up from his son. May have seen it on Twitter. I've never heard him happier. I've never heard him more proud. And he's accomplished quite a bit as a professional baseball player. He's accomplished quite a bit as a father, as a husband, as a son. But this feeling and the sound of his voice, it's something that I'm going to try to describe to you. Picture when your child or your significant other or somebody has a life goal and they work toward that goal, except they can't control it. Maybe it's they want to be an actor, they want to be a professional musician, they want to be a comedian, whatever the case may be. They want to be an economist, they want to be an investment banker. They spend years every day doing nothing, and I mean nothing, but focusing on that goal. And you want for your child to achieve his, her, their goal so badly, whether it's to avoid feeling negative or to enjoy feeling positive, but you don't control it. Jeff Conine works for the Miami Marlins, having been rehired after Jeter got fired, and after Jeter fired him and then got fired himself, and then Bruce Sherman rehired him. Smartest move Bruce Sherman's made. But there was nothing Jeff could do. He doesn't call the player development people. He doesn't speak to Skip Schumacher and say, call up my son. He would never do that. Griffin Conine, who has led the minor leagues in home runs before, he has got 19 home runs or 20 home runs this year. He's played in AAA all year. The Marlins offense is bleak. While they traded for Stowers from Baltimore, who's a lefty with power, and played him, he's not playing well. Xavier Edwards goes on the DL for whatever, doesn't even matter. The fact is, something happened with the roster, and it was time to give Griffin a chance. When you tell a player that they're coming up, you let the AAA manager do it first if he's on AAA. Sometimes the owner will call the player directly first if it's a big-time draft pick or prospect. Griffin is not even on the top 30 prospects, which shows you what we think as a front office of those lists. Totally meaningless, because Griffin Conine is now the top 26 player in the game for the Marlins. I just want to congratulate you, Griffin. He starts tonight in Denver. I promise I will come see you play. For those of you who know me and nothing personal, I have not been to a game since October of 17, the final game of 2017. I have not been to one baseball game. I'm going to go to my first baseball game. I cannot be in Denver tonight because I'm trying to help my son move into school, but I am going to make my way to Miami to see you, and I can't wait. Congratulations, Griffin. I never miss an opportunity to tell you that Scott Boras is one of the worst agents and people I've come across. I never miss an opportunity to tell you what Boras did with Jose Fernandez. I never miss an opportunity to tell you that the way Boras handles owners and free agents and the way he does his scrums at the GM meetings and the winter meetings, the way he dealt with the recent collective bargaining agreement, I never miss an opportunity to give you facts about Boras. Never. Something happened over the weekend that caught my attention. Do you remember Jordan Montgomery? You may remember him from the World Series last year with Texas. You may remember him on the Yankees. You may remember him on the Cardinals. You may remember him as one of Boras's core four free agents last year, along with Chapman and Snell and Bellinger. You may remember that none of them got long-term deals, and you may remember that Jordan Montgomery fired Scott Boras earlier this season. You don't see this every day, what happened yesterday. Jordan Montgomery, the player, came out really hard against Boras, and it made headlines. Many of you correctly said that this would come up on the show today, and yes, it is. But again, for those of you who think you're never surprised by me, you may want to listen every day, because once in a while you're going to be surprised. Do you know Jordan Montgomery has started 19 games and has a 6.44 earned run average? He's thrown 95 innings, won 8 games. He has not pitched well under any scenario. He signed a deal with the Diamondbacks late in spring training. And do you remember the deal that he signed? Do you remember the fact that it was a 1+1? He got one guaranteed year, and the second year becomes guaranteed if he makes a certain number of starts. It was like a vesting option. Jordan Montgomery said that he had a call with the Boston Red Sox during free agency because there was a conversation whether or not the Red Sox would have offered more than what the Diamondbacks offered. He said, that's really all I know. It went good, he told the Boston Herald. I don't know. Obviously, Boras kind of butchered it. So I'm just trying to move on from the offseason and trying to forget it. What exactly did Boras butcher? Did you have a 5-year, $150 million offer? 5-year, $110 million offer? Did you have 4 years at 100? Can you be specific with whether or not the Red Sox offered you what maybe would consider to be a butchering? It's sort of like Snell saying, yeah, the Yankees offered me $150 million, but I knew I could do better. Uh-oh, I didn't do better. Way to go, Scotty. Just trying to figure out what the butchering was, because from where I'm sitting, Scott Boras got a number 8 starter paid like a number 2 starter. I believe that Jordan Montgomery should hand 5% of his $22 million deal to Scott Boras and say, I appreciate you. This is coming on the heels of Jordan Montgomery being moved to the bullpen. He lost his starting spot. Remember that black bag with pieces of paper in it? You know what else is in that bag? Players, contracts, not players. That'd be a very big bag and it wouldn't fit. It would give me backaches. Player contracts, terms, who's got vesting options, who's got player options, team options. What are the terms of the vesting options? Last week, Hector Neris got designated by the Cubs because they didn't want any of his options to vest next year's option. We absolutely have the right and did do that. We would stop players from getting options to vest if the player A was not performing or B, the team was not performing. Harder to win a grievance when the team stinks, but the player is good, and then you stop the player from playing. But do you think it's a coincidence that Jordan Montgomery's in the bullpen? Just out of curiosity. Do you know that his contract says that in 2025, he can get an extra $2.5 million if he gets to 23 starts? Well, he's at 19 starts right now. Why would the Diamondbacks ever allow him to start 4 more games and therefore throw $2.5 million down the toilet where he'd be getting paid $25 million instead of the $22.5 that he already vested into? I'm not sure I would have let him vest at all into 2025, but suffice it to say, he already vested at the first level, but these contracts contain different levels. Your contract vests at $20 million at 18 starts, but then it becomes $22 million at 20 starts, and then $24 million at 24 starts, and then $30 million at 28 starts. And the reason why you go up is a full season. If you're not hurt at the top of the rotation, you should count on getting about 33 starts. 30 starts is a full season. Way to go. You were not hurt. Everything's great. 20 starts means that you've missed approximately, call it 10 times through, which is almost 2 months, assuming you have a starter every 5 days. 10 times 5 is 50. That's 10 weeks. 50 days, that's 7 weeks, excuse me. About a month and a half. It's a full DL. The Arizona Diamondbacks had to, for grievance purposes, send Torey Lovullo out and Mike Hazen out, who's the GM, to talk to reporters. Because the reporters were going to ask, hey, what's the deal with Montgomery? A, what he said about Boras, but B, about him moving to the bullpen. Torey called the decision to move Montgomery to the bullpen agonizing. Agonizing. Why? Because you're saving $2.5 million by not letting him get to his next level of his vesting option? Or because of the fact that he stinks? Which part was agonizing to you? The GM said, we have 30-something games left, Mel Harris and Ken Olin. God, that's a reference that no one will get. There was a show called 30-something. Anyone? Hello? 30-something games left. That's what my cousin said. We're trying to win every single game. I don't think they will, but it's good to try. I've pushed Torey to make the best decisions for the team every single night to put us in a chance to win. Period. I don't care about anything else. I told him we'll deal with anything we have to. Here's a little note for you all. That's not at all how it works within the Diamondbacks or within any other organization. Yes, we're always trying to win every single game, though I've never seen anyone go 162-0. I've pushed our manager to make the best decisions for the team every single night. How does that happen? Do they meet pregame and he says to the manager, hey, listen, make good decisions. Like you're talking to your son going out at 17 years old on the town, make good decisions. Or you tell your daughter, be smart. Think that's what managers are told? Make good decisions. Never said that once to a manager. Hey, let's go over the decisions. What are we doing in this scenario, that scenario, when this happens, when that happens? You think that Mike Hazen just walks in and says, hey, go get him, Torrey. Good luck. Wait to see is when we tell you something's going to happen. And if it happens, great. If it doesn't, fine. Well, Torrey, Mike, and Jordan, I've got to wait to see about you guys. Jordan Montgomery will end this season, with under 23 starts. They will not give him that extra $2.5 million next year. Wait to see. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to review maybe the best movie I've seen all year. And then we're going to talk about something that's going to happen tonight that has never happened in the history of baseball. And I don't say that too often. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Nothing Personal. It's David Samson coming at you live from New Haven, Connecticut. Thank you for downloading, subscribing, and all the things that you do. Was McAfee really drunk on the air, Coca? In Dublin with FSU losing that first game in Dublin on that last second field goal by Georgia Tech? I didn't see it. I just saw that it was rumored. Well, it is 31 minutes after the hour that you're watching this show live. It's 8:31. If you're on DraftKings Network, it's 10:31 Eastern. Either way, I'm thrilled you're here. Make sure you spread the word. I watch a movie every day, even when I'm trying to be a good father. This is a true story. I am a creature of routine, and I've got a Sunday routine because I'm getting ready for the show Monday. Sunday to me is it's the start of the work week. As you prepare for Monday's show, after each show, I then watch a movie and then start getting ready for the next day's shows. So we're doing a sporting class this week. Look for that this week with Pablo Torre and John Skipper. We're recording another episode of that. A bunch of other things that are going on. But no matter what, I'm going to watch my movie. So I'm supposed to be, and I will be, putting together furniture, stuff that I can't do and that I'll try to do and try to be as helpful as I can, knowing that probably my son just wants me to get out of here as quickly as possible. But I will bring pizza before I leave. But of course, I still watch a movie. I watched a movie this weekend, and it became available for streaming. It's called Inside Out 2. Spoiler alert, when I do my list of top 100 movies, which I update, and you have it on davidsamsonpodcast.com, and I update it at the start of every calendar year. It is hard for me to imagine that Inside Out 2 will not crack the top 100, which would make the first sequel, along with its original, to both be in the top 100. Inside Out 1 is already there. Inside Out 2 is going to join, I suspect. Sequels are hard to be original. They did it. They figured out a way, and it is set up perfectly for Inside Out 3. Inside Out 1 was about what's inside the head of a little girl. Inside Out 2 is what's inside the head of a girl heading toward high school and all the different emotions that they have. The voice work is brilliant. The writing is brilliant. It is not a kids movie. Kids could watch it, but they're not going to get it. Inside Out is for adults. How many adults have not seen it thinking, I don't watch animated movies? I heard someone say that to me the other day, actually. How about animated movies that are better than non-animated movies when it comes to lessons? I watched another movie this weekend, and I will review it tomorrow. It's a new movie on Netflix, and I can't think of the name. It may be called Incoming or Upcoming or Outgoing, an attempt to be an 80s movie. It's really hard to capture the zeitgeist of a teenager. It's very hard to properly articulate on screen, and boy, did it work on Inside Out 2. Please see it. It is the same girl as what? It's Riley. Yes, that's the same girl from Inside Out 1. It's the same character who's now older. Thank you. Something else in entertainment happened yesterday, and I am both happy and unhappy. Ted Lasso, it's announced, rumored, is going to have a season 4. And I sent a tweet on X, and I'm not sure that people understood it because, as Coca says, I'm the one who laughs at my own tweets and understands my own tweets at David P. Samson. And I should be focused more on what you want. But on the other hand, I'm focused on what I want, which pretty much tracks. In 2003, in the World Series of Game 4, Roger Clemens was retiring, and it was the last game he was starting, and we gave him in Miami a standing ovation. He tipped his cap. The Marlins, in the middle of a World Series, are on the top step of the dugout applauding him, which made me crazy. I was too. Like, great career. Thank you for the career. And then one needle, 6 packages later, and a Cy Young later, the guy is back. Stealing the moment. I look back now on Game 4 of the World Series and say, if I had known then what I know now, I would have booed him. What a great matchup he and Pavano had, and that was the game that was walked off by Alex Gonzalez, not the Cubs shortstop, our shortstop, off Jeff Weaver. Check it out. What a moment in World Series history. Ted Lasso was done. Season 3 was it. There was a series finale, not the season finale, a series finale. But then it was sort of teased. Could it come back without Jason Sudeikis, without Ted? Would they have the coaches of Richmond coaching? I love Bill Lawrence. I'm watching his new show called Bad Monkey right now. We'll review it at the end of its run. He is very, very brilliant. Shrinking is coming out with its new season. It is impossible for me not to be excited for Ted Lasso season 4. On the other hand, I'm upset because I watch the series finale and I've watched it 5 times. I cry every time. And now what? It's the end of a season? Let's talk about tonight and what you're doing tonight. You got to watch the Red Sox Blue Jays game just for a couple minutes. If you look at what the upcoming games are on the schedule, you'll see on the bottom of your schedule, Red Sox Blue Jays are playing tonight, and the score is 0-0 after an inning. How strange is that? Well, it's not that strange. It's a game on June 26th that got suspended because they were playing it. And remember, the rules have changed. It used to be if you got to 5+ innings, it was an official game. There were rules about, hey, the game was rained out after an inning, it gets wiped away, you start over from the beginning. The union and the commissioner's office and the owners changed that. Now, if a game gets rained out at any time, if it's after 5.5 innings, it's official. It's before, then it is a suspended game, which means you start from that spot, which means the stats count. Why do you think the players wanted that? Any guess? Hey, I hit a home run and then it was gone. I want the home run for arbitration. Owners, hey, we had a 5-0 lead. We want that 5-0 lead. We worked so hard to get it. All right, suspended games will resume from the spot in which they were suspended. Then, when there's a rainout, the mechanics of it are that you've got the player reps from each team. You've got the team president of the home team dealing with the league and the rescheduling person in the commissioner's office. And you're working to say, are we going to play a doubleheader tomorrow? Are we going to reschedule it tomorrow? Let's look and see if we can reschedule it later in the season. Do we have common off days? Where would the teams be traveling from? Are we visiting that city again? All these conversations happen before a suspension of a game or a rainout happens. And then you announce to the media what the plan is. Well, the June 26th game, the plan was that they are going to restart the game on August 26th. The problem is that's 2 months later. The problem is that your team 2 months later does not look anything like your team from 2 months before, especially if you're a seller, which the Blue Jays ended up sort of being because they had such a bad season. Danny Jansen was traded from the Blue Jays to the Red Sox. Danny Jansen was playing for the Blue Jays when that game happened. As a matter of fact, Danny Jansen was at bat when the game got suspended. What do you do when the player is at bat, the game gets suspended? Guess what? That's where the game starts again. It's like it got frozen in time, and then it dethaws, it goes to the bathroom like Mike Myers, and then all of a sudden you start, and then you've got a game, and it's a regular box score. And the time of game will not be 60 days. The time of game will literally be the time of game. The problem is Danny Jansen, what's he going to do? Guess what? He's going to be the catcher while he's also the hitter. Stay with me. Danny Jansen of the Toronto Blue Jays was up at the plate. He had a count of 1 ball, no strikes, 0 balls, 1 strike, whatever the count was. He's looking out. The rain comes. The tarp comes up. He then goes off the field as a Blue Jay. When the game resumes, he goes back on the field as a Red Sox. Except now he's catching instead of hitting, which means the Blue Jays have to announce a pinch hitter for Danny Jansen, who's going to be the catcher, who is actually a defensive replacement for the catcher who was catching when he was hitting, which means he's going to be in the box score as both a Red Sox and a Blue Jay. Guess how many times that's happened in the history of Major League Baseball? I'll wait. 0. He will be the first player to ever play for both teams in the same game. And then when he enters the game, which he is, because Alex Cora said so, he will be catching while he's hitting. So good. I love baseball. So just watch for that. Then you can turn it off. If you want, you can then go right to our pick of the day. Nothing personal pick of the day. We had it. We had it. We had a sweep of a weekend going. On Friday, we told you Luis Castillo and the Mariners would beat the Giants in Dan Wilson's first game as interim, non-permanent manager. And the Mariners won. We told you that Imanaga, you should check him out as Rookie of the Year. We had that. We told you to watch that. The Cubs beat the Marlins 2 touchdowns to a safety on Saturday, 14-2, feeling great. And then yesterday, we told you that the Mets are in the midst of a very important 7-game stretch. Go back to Friday's show. We said if on Sunday they have a chance to win 3 out of 4, that's a game they're going to win because Quintana is their best pitcher. He's good. The Mets had a chance to win 3 out of 4. Quintana was lights out, and Edwin frickin' Diaz blew the save. So we're 2-1. The Padres walked him off. We are still climbing game by game, brick by brick, back to 500. We are 110 and 114. Not too shabby. It wasn't a save. It was a tie game. You're sorry, Coca. That is correct. He did not blow the save. He blew the game. They got walked off. Can I say it that way? That we lost our pick of the day? Big series coming up starting today. The Philadelphia Phillies of Philadelphia are playing against the Houston Astros of Houston. That could be. Let me think. Astros? Phillies? Is there a way? Does DraftKings, I'm sure they do. Do they have matchup World Series odds? Where would the Phillies Astros World Series be in terms of the favorite matchups for a World Series? I would assume they would have Dodgers Yankees as the favorite, but I would say that the Astros Phillies would not be too far behind. Zach Wheeler is going against Blanco. Remember Blanco, the no-hitter, the sticky guy, that guy Blanco? Zach Wheeler is a huge favorite over the Astros. Zach Wheeler is giving 162. We're taking the Phillies. The Phillies have struggled since the All-Star break. Astros have not. The Phillies are not in danger of their division lead going away. The Astros are not in danger of their division lead going away, much to the chagrin of the Seattle Mariners. The Phillies will win tonight. Let's talk about the Mariners for 1 second, if you don't mind. We touched on this yesterday, just a bit. or Friday when the Mariners fired their manager and Dan Wilson took over for Scott Servais. We mentioned briefly that Scott Servais found out he was fired not from Jerry Dipoto, but from a text alert from The Athletic, the same way that I found out I was fired. It's not a great feeling to read something about yourself. And players would say to me sometimes, Cliff Floyd was the first one who ever said it to me, actually, that he found out he was traded from the media, not from us. We thought we had gotten to him fast enough. We assumed we had. Maybe we hadn't, Cliff. If we didn't, I'm sorry. I learned how it felt when it happened to me. It doesn't feel great. Scott Servais is not very happy. Scott Servais was able, in a phone interview on Friday, to articulate what he was feeling, and I thought that it would interest you. Because the reason it interested me is that he was able to come up with a way to explain his feelings that I was not and have not been able to do since 2017. He said that was one of the toughest things, obviously, learning from an alert on my phone. It was just the reality of what may be coming down here in the next few hours. When you're part of an organization for 9 years, it feels like family. And it was alarming that I found out that way. I can't say it didn't happen. It absolutely happened that way. He took the high road, didn't he? He was honest about how he felt about Jerry Dipoto, his boss, family, maybe Stanton, his owner, family. Thinking about your community, thinking about your life, your family. And I know this happens when players get traded or when players leave as free agents. Change is hard. It gives people tummy aches. It's the type of tummy ache that I crave and that I look for and that I recognize. But I realize the difference in what happens as a manager and a player, more so when they're released than when they're traded. When a player is traded, you can get the tummy ache about changing schools for your kids or changing cities or where you're going to live, but you're going to do your job somewhere else. You're getting to do what you've done. It'll look different, it'll smell different and taste different, but it is what you've done. When you fire somebody as one of 30 managers, that manager has no idea whether he will get another opportunity to manage. There's been no indication that any team has tampered with Servais and that it was the type of situation like when we got Ozzie Guillen where the White Sox knew exactly what we were doing. The White Sox were letting him go. We signed him. We knew it with Mattingly. The Dodgers were letting him go. We were going to take him. When the Dodgers fire Mattingly or don't renew his contract, same thing, and you know you're going to hire him, that angst, that stomach ache, it's, hey, I get to do this. I get to keep doing it. When I wasn't the president of a team anymore, I knew I didn't want to do it anymore, and I wanted to be in media and have a show like this. Didn't realize I would at that time, as we are approaching 5 years of doing nothing personal. But my stomach ache was that of change, not of despondency, not having a chance to be a team president. I had 18 great years. Scott Servais, in his view, is just starting his managerial career, continuing his managerial career, wanted an opportunity to get over the hump in his managerial career, and he's just not going to get it. The disappointment is palpable, and I want to give him credit. The credit is he could have gone scorched earth. He could have absolutely created a rift between him and the Mariners, between him and the fan base, between him and ownership. He could have spent the time to make life miserable for them because of the way this went down. The timing of it was bizarre. The way it was done was simply wrong. But Scott didn't do it, which really shows the type of person he is. Which then surprised me when Julio Rodriguez, their best player, the one signed to the long-term deal, hundreds of millions of dollars, the young player who they're building around, he was asked about the firing and said, hey, I'm just focused on playing baseball. We're employees here, just like everybody is. So we've just got to show up and play baseball. That got me thinking. Does that mean that Servais and Julio had an issue? Because Julio easily could have come out and said, man, I can't believe, I'm so sorry that Scott lost his job. The only manager I ever had. I should have done more. I could have done more. I haven't had a good year. Our offense stinks. Our pitching's great. I'm despondent beyond repair. But no, instead, Rodriguez's comments were more vanilla. Could that be the reason why there was such an acute issue that made the Mariners get rid of Servais? Was there really a thought? Or was it just business? Good luck the rest of the way in Seattle. This is nothing personal.